Good morning. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you know, we have organized two lectures on broadcast media. In the first lecture today, we'll try to understand the different aspects of broadcast journalism, and in tomorrow lecture, we'll try to understand broadcast production, and especially about television. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in our studio eminent media person, Dr. S.R. Chari. You know, he is currently professor of broadcast in Indian Institute of Mass Communication, one of the premier institutions of the country, and in last 2 decades he has in fact nurtured various media professionals who are working at the top position of the different news channels and the radio channels. So his contribution is well known, and the media people from the media, everybody want to know about him. And apart from that, I would like to tell you that Professor Sari is a widely read person. He is a Fulbright scholar in radio, TV, film from University of Austin, Texas. And before joining Indian Institute of Mass Communication, he has has worked in various capacity in All India Radio and television news, and reported from the national event and international event from the different country like Germany, Moscow, Maldives, Lusaka, Harare, Tanzania. So his experience and knowledge will help us to understand the broadcast journalism, and particularly the television journalism. So on your behalf, I welcome him for EduSet lecture on this very topic, broadcast journalism, and especially television journalism. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Amarendra. We are today talking about broadcast journalism. In fact, the whole idea of broadcast journalism means that which is electronically transmitted, whether it's radio or television, or even today now we are talking about broadcasting through mobile phones and IP television, which reaches you through your IP addresses, and it can reach all over. But to be a little more precise, a very wide area we are talking about, but to be a little more focused, let's look at broadcast journalism today is talking about television is very, very prominent. So we are talking about, let us take a look at this television journalism in particular, which is a source for all the other visual mediums which are broadcast in now, and then it has a tremendous influence and impact on the society. All our information, all our knowledge about various things. In fact, the newspapers come a day after. And earlier we used to think the radio was the fastest mode of medium of the electronic media, or the broadcast media. And television used to take a little time before it actually reaches you because of the visuals which had to be processed, edited, and brought to you. But today it is all changed globally, all over the world. In fact, anywhere, any event happening, television can bring you as fast or as quickly as radio used to do earlier. Now take a look at this, beaming all around. Look at this, how the television studios, from where the broadcast goes right up to the satellite and brings down. And let's take the picture again. Let's take a look at it again. This picture, which I just showed you, in which you will find that most of the news which is broadcast. Can we see the picture? Yeah, you see that there is an SNG van there. Apart from the studio, you'll find a digital news, DSNJ they call it. That van actually can be in the field, and from the field, people are live transmitting news, talking live chats, and then they are bringing the events right from the spot. That is actually what is happening. Now the modern technology has changed so much that you'll find recently when we had this cyclone in Odisha and Andhra, feline hitting us, you found so many reporters on the spot. In fact, they didn't even require the DSNG vehicles. They even just had a 2-member team, a cameraman with a backpack. From the backpack, he or she can straight away beam the images to the satellite, and the reporter standing in front can report, and whatever is being seen, shot out there is being uplinked to the studios right from the spot, and you saw the whole cyclone Falin being covered in that manner. Several reporters spread out on Odisha, spread out in Andhra Pradesh. Earlier, we also saw the Uttarakhand the disaster, where we also saw a large number of people, particularly who was reporters who had gone on to the various areas where the flood affected places, and there they had done all that coverage using simple technology, the advanced technology which has now come up, which enables people to report direct from the spot. Now, having told you that, now it's a globalized village where every news comes from all over the world. And I traveled in my days where I used to travel abroad, there used to be a huge amount of time required, booking satellites, booking editing suits and all that. Now it is all not required. You can do it right on your own laptops, and you can all small equipment, video editors, you can do that editing, and you can in fact do most of it live. Now, having said that, but all journalism, what has not changed in journalism, whether it's television journalism, broadcast, with which we are trying to talk today, most important thing is the basic concepts of journalism, the pillars of journalism. That is, what should be the, can we switch this next slide, please? This one. You can have a look at the next slide. How do we do it here?
Yeah.
They will do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you see this. The basic pillars of journalism, whether it is radio, television, broadcasting, print, the three things about accuracy, impartiality, and fairness continue to be the same. These are the basic ethics of journalism. You have to broadcast accurate visuals, accurate information, and we have to double check, triple check to see that the information is not incorrect, and then we also have to ensure the visuals which we are showing are genuine visuals, and there was accusations recently in Uttarakhand coverages where they were talking about Kedarnath and all these coverages. Some places there was even alleged to have used footage which was not current but was old footage, which is an incorrect thing, and such practices should not be followed. Then impartiality. Journalists should not be taking any favors or any inducements, and then they cannot go on junkets, etc. They have to be impartial, and they have to be very objective to the extent possible. That remains the same in television journalism forever, whether it has been in the past or today or tomorrow. These are very important because we have a right to the viewers that they should get impartial information. Fairness is also equally important. Journalists should be honest and not mislead interviewers, sources of information, or the audience. The aspect of TRPs, and then we are talk about all this, trying to make this channel popular or get more eyeballs, should not be the reason for you not being fair. Otherwise, the credibility of the channel, the credibility of the journalism, credibility of television news will go down. So these are some of the very important pillars of which remain the same. Also, particularly when we are talking about television journalism, there are certain things which we must try and understand. There is, apart from the other aspects of what do you call this basic ethics, there are certain important things like libel defamation is applicable to all. Whether you should not bring in, we should respect the privacy of people, and then should not say anything which will make them exposed to public scorn, or they should not be made to feel deprived because of their whatever their activities. But there is also a journalistic difference, as in other places, that truth, privilege, and fair comment matter of public interest. In sense, if the people are in important public places, then they should be in fact accountable to the public, and their activities can be brought to public notice. Yet another more important thing is what you call in television, particularly for the television, what is a very important ethic is what you call false light. False light. Let us see the slide. In the slide we have shown that third point is false light. What is false light? Here we are dealing with visuals. When we are dealing with visuals, then we have to be very, very careful. Television journalism is all about showing good visuals, appropriate visuals, so that the communication process gets endorsed. And in fact, the credibility is higher, the impact is higher, only because we are using television, we're using visuals as a process of communication and endorsing whatever we are saying by bridging the gap between the event and what is on the viewers. So that's how we are making it very credible. So the visuals are very important. When we are showing the visuals, so often and on we have the tendency, let us look at the slide again, that slide which we just showed. And if you can see that slide, there is this, yes, false light, sting operations, conflict of interest, reenactments and staging, file footage. These are particularly these are all applicable to the television ethics. Now, as I was telling you, false light is a place where if you show visuals and then write something which is not in that connection, in that whatever we are on general pictures, we are saying something very hurtful. Say, for example, we are saying that showing a hospital shot and saying people affected with HIV/AIDS, and then if you see some person on that screen, then that person can be identified in the society. People may identify that him or her and say that they may attribute this disease to them, which is very incorrect. So we are using general visuals when we are talking about wrong or very negative aspects of events. Then we should be very, very careful that the people should not get falsely identified and then come to harm. So that is called false light. So when you're using shots, visualizing pictures, then you've got to be very careful. Similarly, when you do sting operation, whether when it is necessary, whether cameras, hidden cameras, whether we can actually ethically use those pictures, these are all very, very careful things, because I'm trying to outline all these ethical questions before we even proceed to see what is television journalism about. Because in television, we have the responsibility to show the right visuals and not mislead people. Then similarly, when we are talking about many television channels do reenactment of and staging, and which may not be the same thing as what has happened there. You're trying to reconstruct stories, how ethical it is. This is what something we have to be very careful about. When we are using file footage, and then we have to be very, very honest and say that the footage which we are seeing or the pictures which we are seeing, they were taken out from the archives and they are not the current visuals, but they're only illustrating a situation which has happened earlier. And we've got to make an announcement of that. Then ethics of editing audio, video, these are all ethical questions which can go into detail when we are talking about the. But broadly, when we're talking about television journalism, when we are trying to show people what on the television news, what we are getting on the television news. In fact, there are more than 400 channels today, and every one of them, as I see them, many of them as a professional, I find many of them violate these ethics, and that's why we are. Find it there has to be some accountability, and it is very, very wrong, and we have to be very careful if you are proceeding on a career on television or broadcast journalism. We need to see that these visuals are accurate as the words and the information which we are trying to share with the people. Having said these ethics, now let us take a look at what is actually about television journalism. More specifically, television journalism, you'll find all this. The anchors sometimes with the graphics behind them or on the side of them. I'm sure you have seen all of these. Then you will see stills, pictures sometimes when we don't get video. Then we see maps to identify places. Then we see charts which we identify the various statistics, economic data. All that is given in pie charts, line charts, bar charts, whatever. So all these are visuals which are there. Now let us take a look at each of those visuals. Anchors. I'm sure you would have realized even anchors are a kind of a visual. In fact, they are the face of the television news channels. If you are proceeding on a career path of becoming an anchor, you have to be a very good journalist first. And these journalists, when they become anchors, they have a dress code, how they present themselves, how they look at into the camera, not only presentation, what they are saying, how they are saying, these all becomes very important. And because they are the face of the television channels and they are very highly paid, you will find that some news, even if we have visuals, some news is always put in their mouth, because they have to come onto the screen before every television news story. They have to introduce the story, which we call studio anchor lead. In the first part of the story, the most important part of the story, is always introduced by these anchors. Anchors the world over, they are the selling face of the channel, and how the channel's credibility, how the channel's own viewership, the TRPs, most of it depends upon these anchors. So we also have anchors who are for different purposes. The main anchors, sometimes the news is read by one or even two anchors, so that there is no monotony of. Then there is also sports anchors, that there are weather anchors, all kind of people. So the anchors, how they dress, they are almost every time they are very, very formally dressed. No anchor is informally dressed. They are all business-like. They are telling you authoritatively important information and analyzing it and bringing it to you. So it's a serious business. So all this information, their dress code is formal, their presentation is very, very formal, and their delivery, they are and of course they're not very, very you don't see much emotions, although these days some of the anchors do. Sometimes when sad news is there, it's really somberly read and then solemnly spoken, and there is a little smile when they talk about some happy events or victory for India or cricket or any matches, things like that, or a human interest story. Having said that about anchors, we can even go on talk about how the anchors they can be trained, their voice can be trained, their presentation can be trained, and how their language is scripted. All these are important things. Then let us look at the other things about graphics. Graphics are very, very important part of the television news, because particularly the economic data it's not very easy to visualize the economic data. So it has to be through graphics, or if you just talk about, it's the artwork. When we are talking about price rise, inflation, these are all normally you'll find all those visuals which are prepared, and artwork is prepared and kept at the back, which is the food inflation, probably vegetable market, something, and then written down on data also is seen on the right side in a small window on the news anchor. So these are very, very important illustrations which will take away the monotony of television journalism. But let us look at that chart again, where we have shown you television visuals. The most important visual, of course, is the video, the footage, where we send the video camera and the camera person shoots the visuals, we bring them, edit them, and then show them. These visuals, this footage or a video which we bring to illustrate television visuals, which is the most important aspect of this medium, that is the visuals, video. And the video can be, let us take a look at this thing which we have just shown you, this map again, and please can we cut that, this the video, the visual, which is, yes. Now you see there, it says the video can be several types of video. One is anchor read with natural sound. There could be a voiceover, that is a video on which the anchors can put voice or the reporters can put their voice. There could be sound on tape or sound bites, that is small short interviews of people, or we can have SimSat, that is a recorded interview of another person from a distance via satellite or something. We can do people are in Mumbai. You'll find in television news channels a lot of times do small interviews with experts, politicians, experts, scientists. They are not present in Delhi or Mumbai. If our studios are in Delhi, we can always via satellite interview a person in Mumbai or Vizag or Odisha, Bhubaneswar. We can interview them and bring those interviews to as part of our own talk show or in the news. These are called SimSats. Similarly, you can be just a plain phone in, where inaccessible. It's a very difficult situation where you'll find that person cannot be, camera cannot reach there. You have only a person there, a reporter, who takes his or her phone and starts speaking to you into the studio. You can put a map as the locating the person's place where he or she is talking from. Put a picture of that photograph of the reporter, which we call a still, and we can interact with that reporter and getting the information. This is also quite normal, where the cameras can not reach in a cyclonic situation or a disaster situation where it has become very, very difficult. The phone-ins are also possible. But of course, the most attractive part of the whole television visual is the, what do you call, the package. The television package, that is, if you, although this is much less these days in the sense it's a little expensive, time consuming, where you have all the ingredients of a video, where the footage is shot and the visuals are taken from the spot, and then you also have illustrated graphics in that, or maps and the charts which are also illustrated. Then you can also have in that package the sound bites of various sources. You collect the sound bites of people, edit them, and put them in appropriate places, and the whole thing is put on a voiceover. And then you can also have Pista cameras. What are Pista cameras? Pista cameras are the reporters reporting from the spot. The small footage where the reporter comes onto the screen for a little while to establish that he or she is on the location. They're also business-like, stand up in front of the, wherever the event is taking place. So this brings the more credibility, in the sense that we are not saying this, not going from reading from the agencies or reports, but we find our reporter is present on the spot, and that reporter, he or she, you can see there in the background whatever the event is taking place there. So these reports from the called piece to camera, that is a small piece which is spoken in front of the camera. Normally these piece to cameras are closing piece to cameras, where the reporters try to summarize or the issue, whatever they have, the entire event, or raise questions. They say what kind of solutions are possible, what kind of developments are taking place, how the whole event is progressing, developing. That could be their analysis. Or these piece to cameras could be coming right in the beginning of the story itself, where something like an accident taking place or something happening, or this cyclone. So that we can straight away go to the spot. The live, they can be giving a piece to camera, and then that could be live chat. Or normally the people coming to a P2C, it's normally a live chat when we are looking at the right in the beginning of the story. But usually at the end of the story, we find a P2C, a beginning P2C, an end P2C, or sometimes they can even come in the middle to link two parts of the story. Like is what's happening in Andhra Pradesh, what's happening in Bhubaneswar or Balasore, and then they want to link up the situations there. Maybe you don't have a reporter at one place, so you can link it up by coming in between when they change over. So there are different types of piece to cameras, which can, now we have a video package in which we have voiceovers, we have footage, video footage, we have maps and charts, and then graphics, and then also piece to cameras. The entire thing made into a package for a very important story. That is how television journalism, the reporters have to plan all this. Now to do all these kind of visuals, we just saw so many types of visuals. All these visuals have to be a part. How do you go ahead and try to plan the television story using all these kind of visuals? You look at this. Television reporting means, like any other media unit, there is an assignment desk. There is, like every place, where the reporters are assigned different stories. They offer some of the stories, and then they are there with there are camera crews. These assignment desks, so there is an assignment editor or assignment producers. They discuss how the story has to be dealt with when any news event takes place, what angle should be taken, how the story has to be built up, what kind of a visuals should be there. Then we also look at the sources of TV news and what kind of a sources, what kind of sound bites are required for the television story, then whom to interview for the sound bites, and then what kind of a questions are required to be asked to get that kind of sound bites which can be used in the news story to enhance that news story's understanding of the thing. Similarly, after all these sound bites, etc., having talked about, then we also require what kind of a shots are there. That's the most important part. How do you visualize a television story? Suppose there is a talks between India and Pakistan, some secretary level talks are happening, or prime minister level talks are happening. Anything can be there. And if you are there, how do you go about this? So when you say that probably the talks are taking place at South Block or in the Foreign Office, you will have to go take shots of the Foreign Office where the talks are taking place, the location, the long shots. You'll have to. The cameraman normally they are very very savvy, and they are particularly there are many of the camera persons are also deputed for the news, so they understand the news. So what kind of a shots are required? Whether the foreign dignitary coming out of the car, whether the car they'll take a shots of the car, the person coming out of the car, and the person shaking hands. These are all you don't have to be briefed. They are by intuition and by experience, they know what kind of a shots to take. But sometimes it becomes very important that you will also have to keep looking at what's happening there. And the reporter has to be very, very careful about the kind of shots, because eventually he or she has to write that story on those visuals. So you'll also keep track of what's there's development. Suddenly there could be a new development. A person can be wanting to give a sound bite, or the talks could be joined by somebody else. Say, for example, if there are foreign ministers and there is another delegation, the economic delegation, where the commerce ministers are also joining in, that's important shots. It should not be missed, because it could be another agreement being signed between the two countries. Now today, if the Prime Minister is abroad in Russia, he is trying to sign some agreements, and the importance of Kodunkulam, although there is no news that of the reactors being supplied to India, or there's some agreement has been coming through this, but it can develop. Any moment, the two prime ministers meeting there could suddenly decide, and that would become an important story. Accordingly, you will have to brief the camera person that that's going to be the major story. So please look at if any agreement is being signed, or any talks are going on, or any soundbite is coming up in that direction. We will have to quickly move on to that area and capture the visuals. So these are very important things when we look at it. And then apart from that visualization, you also know that you will have taken all these visuals, very good, but then you're going to show them, but you've got to edit those visuals also. If you have to edit those visuals, how are you going to do it? They can become jerky, and there could be jump cuts, unless you plan for an eventuality that to insert some cutaways, which we call them cutaways. So you have to plan that if you're taking somebody's interview, then you will have to take a shot which is of his or her hands, or some camera persons, other press people, or even the interviewer, the reporter, or anything which is relevant, which is part of that whole occasion, but it's cutting away from the sound bite. The person who is giving the sound bite, the interviewee, away from him, some cutaways are required, which will help you when you are editing the story to put them together. That's a very important thing when you are doing television journalism. And then also, you have, if you are, it's a longish interview, if it's not just a sound bite, but maybe you are using a little longer interview on the spot, it's very important if it's an important story. And it could be a studio interview, or when you can do it live and then editing. But if it's a field interview and you are taking a slightly longer thing than the sound bite, in which case you will have to look at different types of shots. You also have to use the OSS, or the over the shoulder shot, because the expert is important. You always have to concentrate on him or her rather than on the interviewer or the reporter. The reporter, we can always put him shots later. So the OSS shots, which we call them, the over the shoulder shot of the expert. Then we can also have sometimes for editing, what you call the noddies, people nodding or something. These are all normal techniques which we should not forget. And apart from all that, when we are actually doing the television shooting, you will have to be very careful. This is a new technology is there now, and if you want to, and then the television channels are 24/7, and this 24/7 television channels are happening, which would mean there is all the entire footage now has a time code running through that. So when the time code is running, when we have the whole time code running there, then we will see that the visuals, if you have a 24/7 channel, then suddenly when you come back and want to give breaking news and find out exactly where the particular shots are or the sound bite is, you will not be able to do unless you are taking care of the time code. And then at important places, you note the time code and as a reporter and keep it with you. What shots are there, where the shots are, where the interviews are, where the sound bites you think are useful. This time code is very important on the footage. Right in the field, you will have to take care of that. Then planning graphics. People, as reporters, keep moving from the event to the place and coming back, and then they keep coming back they'll have to think on their feet continuously. And there is no time. I mean, the only time they get for doing their mental research or planning the graphics, planning the artworks, all this is done as they are traveling from their event place to their studios to the place of event where it's happening or coming back. They will have to do all this planning, and they will have to do this. And that they also have to think about archive footage which they have to take, or what kind of a captions they have to put, which are called astons. There is also possibility of subtitles. Sometimes when somebody is speaking in a different language, you want to give subtitles to make it understand. And then also you can have text questions. I mean, you have some quotations which you will have to say. Sometimes the text is not very clear. You want to put the text on the screen. These are also which have to be put there. There's also breaking news, which means that you have to, in 6 to 7 words, what is coming up. All this has to be planned by the reporters. In television reporting, you will have to do all this planning. Now, having planned and having gone to the field, having got the footage, the different type of visuals are planned now, everything is done. Now the story has to be written down. That is the most difficult part of it, the whole story. It's in television. There comes a difference. Unlike in newspapers or in radio broadcasting, the writing for television has a totally different style. That is, a scripting is a completely a new ball game altogether. We firstly, to begin with, to script a television news story, we have used a split page. You know why a split page? You can take a page and fold it into half, and then left side and the right side. The left side is called, this is the split page, right from down the middle. And the left side is kept for showing what kind of visuals are there. And in the right side, you'll write the narration or the script or the news or program or whatever, or the dialogues, everything. You can do any program, everywhere you'll find that the split page. That on the left side, you show the visuals, or on the right side, you will write the script. And the visuals have to match the visuals. It is called reference writing. Why? Because, this is a double communication process. You have visuals on the left side which are communicating something, and you are using a narration, or the person who is giving a voiceover. It could be anchor, it could be a reporter, or it could be people in a drama giving dialogues. All these are going on. This sound is only enhancing the communication process which is happening on the visuals. Therefore, you cannot be writing what is already being seen there. Unlike a radio commentary or a newspaper where people can reading the situation, trying to understand it, here people are also seeing what can already be seen there. That if some flood situation, like we saw, or a cyclone situation, the helicopters are dropping food packets. If you say that helicopter is dropping food packets, I'm sure people will laugh at you, because Helicopters can't be dropping bombs when you are a flood situation. They are dropping only food packets. They are dropping medical relief material. So instead of saying what they are actually doing, instead of identifying that it's a helicopter which people can see, you'll say how many helicopters. That's about the 6 helicopters of Indian Air Force have dropped nearly 20,000 packets of food and relief material today in Balasore. That would be additional information. Now you see the difference. Now we are not saying that it is only a helicopter dropping food packet. We are just saying actually adding the information, how many helicopters have been pressed into service, how much relief material has been provided for the particular district, whether it is adequate, if it is not adequate. That is the analytical part of it. How big the situation, how difficult the situation is, how the people are finding it, how difficulties people are going through. Those are the additional information on the basis of what we are seeing there. We are writing on the place, and the voiceovers are adding on it. This is an art which would be practiced. It comes with a lot of practice and a lot of thinking, and your ability to play with words and your ability to get the right words at the right time, and then it has all this has to be done quickly when you are doing a television stories. So this is called what we call reference writing, writing for visuals. This is different. And this is, of course, at the same time, the language has to be very informal. It has to be spoken language. It cannot be stiff language, which is not like a reading language, but it should be like radio spoken language, and spoken language, there again, with a little difference. Now, apart from the spoken language in a conversational style, which would mean that you should not give too much of information on what we are seeing, because now there is information coming through the visuals, there is information coming through your whatever you are saying there, and then the people also need to absorb both. They have to absorb what you are saying, they have to absorb what is coming on the visuals. Actually, their whole attention span, the researchers or scientists say 80% of the attention span is on the visuals. So you are normally writing a few words less than what the visual, not covering the entire visual. Say that is, for example, if you are speaking at a speed of about normally 3 words per second, and if the visual is for 10 seconds, you should not write 30 words. You should write less than 30 words. There is some breathing time for the visual where the viewers can listen to you and also absorb the visual and have a little more breathing time and say that enjoy the visual also and get information from the visual also. That is very crucial in writing. So this is a very, very creative type of writing when we are talking about television. There is also another problem in television, because these visuals, they flow in a particular manner. There is something what you call a grammar of visuals. You can't put some visuals first and then you can put some visuals later. I mean, it'll be as funny as trying to, that you remember that story of the crow, when the pebbles are put and it gets the water up and then drinks. If you show the last visuals first and some other visuals in the between, the whole story gets skewed. I mean, it looks funny. So there is sometimes the visual have to flow in a particular order. So the problem now is how to say the most important thing first, and then move on, and then follow the grammar as visual. You cannot say, suppose something like a funeral, something about the late any big any funeral procession. Like I remember when we had the late Prime Minister who died, and his mortal remains were consigned to the flames. Somebody started by saying it was coming in earlier. Body was brought to Delhi, and then earlier the body was taken through the streets of Delhi, and earlier like that. You going the inverted pyramid, the most recent thing happening. It will not work, because then the visuals will be running in the reverse order. That will not be correct. So you will have to. There is a grammar of visuals. Visuals will flow from one. You cannot first, like the earlier examples which I was talking about, the talks between the two Indian and foreign, India and Pakistan secretary level meeting. You can't show the at end of the talks first, and then this is where the news is actually. When they finish the talks, they will say whether we have raised the issue of the terrorism across the border, and that is probably spoken at the end. So you can't say the visuals first and then show that he is arriving. That will be incorrect. So we'll have to start with this. So how do you write your lead story like in the news? How do you organize a delayed lead, slightly delayed lead? How do you organize the visuals? These are also things to be sorted out when you are writing, particularly for television visuals, which have the visuals have their own grammar, and the visuals have a way of flowing in, and visuals also communicate. So all these factors have to be catered to when you are writing to the visuals. This is about television writing for the visuals. That's very, it's an art which you'll have to practice a lot, and you watch carefully how television stories are doing. Then we will be able to have a look at this. Now, another important thing now is that apart from television writing, you will now see that there is actually when we are putting the story together, then you will see that people are they say that you should not be repeating what you can see. All this we have talked about. Putting the news in perspective, analyzing the news, balancing the news, and keeping ahead of the pack. These are something which is very important, because there is a tremendous amount of competition between television news channels. Everybody is writing the stories. So your own story has to be a little different, where you will be trying to see. A lot of people are monitoring all the news channels. So your story has to be different from the other stories. How does it become different? By how you are providing your analysis, what kind of a visuals you are providing, and how you are doing it differently from that means you have to have an angle of the story. You will have to have, and the story has to be written in a particular sequence, and you have to have analysis, you have to have background, you have to have objective this thing, and you also have to keep all those ethical questions which we started off with. So all this game of, and then also make your story very attractive so that it's informative to the people and people would like to look at the story. Then finally, we will also like to see how this whole story you have written down, you have planned it, you have visualized it, you have shot it, and then you would like to, and then probably sometimes you even have a live chat, you have reporters coming giving you all this. Everything is planned, everything is done. Now finally you will have to edit those visuals. How do you edit television news stories? That's another art, and it's very interesting. There are two theories. Some people say first you write the story, write a voiceover, and then you put the visuals, cut the visuals, put them together. But that is one way of looking at it. That is, you are first envisage the whole story and then write your story first, plan it. You have planned it already, and then you insert visuals on the television story which you have written. But many experts say that is not the right way of doing things. The right way of doing television stories is first edit the visuals. We said television is visually driven. When it is visually driven, the visuals are of primary importance. So you put the story, you have your visuals, you edit them, edit all sound bites, put the story together, and then write a story on the visuals which are available. That is how people say you should do the story. Both are acceptable, but the first way of writing the television story first and then putting the visuals has the merit of, because it can be done faster, and then it can be done very fast. You come back and write a story. There also, I say, it is not done at random like that. That is the first way of writing the story first is also done with visuals in mind. It is there, what people are doing is, the reporters are experienced reporters, senior reporters, they have all the visuals in their mind, and they mentally edit the entire visuals. And when they edit all those visuals in their mind, and they know that this is how the story will look, then they write the story. So both of them are not very different. Editing visuals first or writing the story first, which would mean either first way we mentally edit the whole visuals and write story and then put the visuals, or in the second one we actually edit the visuals. It's the same thing, that you will have to follow the visuals. It's not that as if you are trying to, the visuals, if you don't have the visuals, you don't have. So you'll have to write the story accordingly. So this is how this art and craft of editing television visuals and then writing to the visuals, what we call reference writing, and then planning different types of visuals, the graphs, graphics, charts, and all those things which we have seen, they're all put into the, make it visually rich, and communication becomes the most important thing, and very powerful. And that's how actually when you say television journalism, in the broadcast journalism, it's a the premier, I mean, that's very prime way of the most popular way or the most effective way. The world over, we see about 70 to 80% of the people get their news from television channels. It's only because of this that the visuals are very powerful. They have a greater impact than any other mode of communication. So that's how we have this. And then finally, there is also when we are talking about editing, it's not only editing of packages, video, which we have discussed. There is also live editing of live inputs which are coming in. As we have talked about live chats which come there, they also have to be edited. You can't go on endlessly. There is also a way of, they are very well researched. People have information, and they keep passing the microphones because they're all thinking on their feet. The live reporter from the field would always take the name of the anchor when they want to finish the story, or the anchor would call the person by name. So they're all normal indicators where how they keep track of that the live chat, how much to take, how much information is going on, how cross questioning is taking place to get the best of information, the maximum amount of information, which is also put in the proper perspective of what information the studio anchors have from other sources. So all these sources are coordinated, like we saw in that Cyclone Fallon. We had reporters coming from 2-3 different places. They all are being coordinated from the studio, and that is how mental editing is taking place, how much time is allocated to this. And also, the information is also come from the Central Weather Department, Indian Meteorological Department. That information is also being collated. So these are the ways of live mental editing. In all this, the most important thing you should remember is that reporters have very little time, and they work under tremendous pressures. They are working all the time, and all the time they are 24/7. They are with the facts and information, following track, and then they are also thinking on their feet. Their words have to come, I mean, like a flow, and then they can't grope for words. So this is another aptitude which you have to develop if you want to be a television journalist, that you have to have a very good command on the language and quick thinking, quick reflexes. All these are very, very important when we are looking at television journalism. So the broadcast journalism, particularly when we are saying, we have tried to take a little look at the television journalism part of it, which would which is of course the very powerful medium. And then there are other medium equally, because these are available online journalism. Then we have broadcast radio journalism, and then also we have this delivery also is now taking place through some television is also now coming up on the mobile phones, which now.
Yeah, we would like to tell the viewers, we will cover one by one in coming months.
I think that will be very interesting.
Yeah, because today we cover most of the television journalism, yes. So it's not be precise to call it a broadcast journalism. Better it's TV journalism we talked about, and tomorrow
very true.
And tomorrow we'll talk about the TV production, I think.
True.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
So, but one thing before we wind up the lecture, I would like to know from you, after having done all this ready for the telecast, what things need to be checked before the telecast?
Yes, the
3 points that is very.
That's very important, because we have to be, whatever goes on the air, it has to be accurate. The information has to be, that's what they say, double check or triple check. The information has to be correct, because ultimately it's the responsibility of the editor. Whatever is going on the air, it has to be accurate, and you cannot give in wrong information. Similarly, the visuals also, you have to, if they're taking from old visuals or any footage from archives, etc., it has to be labeled that it is file footage, and all these factors and information have to be done. And then, of course, I mean, then there, as I said, the lot of ethical questions are there, the relevance of the visuals, and then apart from all that, then you also have to see the objectivity, how far the television channels are, the news is information is objective, and there is also the fairness document. You know, if you television channels now will have to say that, particularly with the forthcoming of a lot of political stories, a lot of other stories which are corporate sector and all, you have to, if you carry one point of view, you have to carry the opposite viewpoints also.
Right.
So that fairness document also applies to television channels. These are all have to be checked. Firstly, both the content and the visuals.
So basic principle of journalism must be fit into the
Absolutely,
TV
absolutely,
journalism.
yes.
So well friends, with this word we like to conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on behalf I thank Professor S.R. Raghavachari for giving such a insightful lecture on this very topic. Thank you very much.